We've seen the devastation and destruction ISIS has caused in Iraq, in Syria, throughout the region. Beheadings, brutal killings, crucifixions, rapes. Now, take a look at this video. One group of women, the Yazidis, facing specific threat, and they're trying to get help.
When Adla was in captivity, she dreamed of having her baby born into freedom. She escaped from Daesh, was reunited with her husband, and gave birth to a healthy, happy baby girl. She and her husband named the child Ibad, genocide, to make sure that no one ever forgets.
Daesh روشاوا هات باما همو قرتن دوانزنا فرش معلمة.
Adla was 6 months pregnant. She and other women were moved from Sinjar to Syria and then Mosul and Tel Afar.
خودي الموصل أم قالك درسان نما خوار ونما بات خوار نمن نفستن بس متجريان هاتن يعني مجتمع غرفات تجيبو هاتن شنيفت قرتن رات كرن هاتجي قوتن رابن أمي وابن بزورة هاتجينا شوا بشحفيت قرتن وبزورة ليدان دارا ليدان وبزورة بارد كرن وبرن.
When they took them to a village, she managed to escape.
أس خلاص نبويم أزي خوكوجم منتي لا بمين.
Adla still has 10 members of her family missing. Her husband Omar has 8.
راستك بامدتي مديد أفاند بصاغي بسلامتي بس يقددو هذا هيش ده نفر معنا يعني داكو باب شندت عزيز برد اللي مرب كزانوي ومامي هشت تبجي هشت نفر.
Adla, like thousands of others, has lost almost everything. Her home now is a construction site near Zacho. Life revolves around preparing meals and trying to keep warm. In fact, life is on hold for everyone here. Among the many things Daesh took from these children was their childhood. It's particularly tough for girls. Several thousand women and girls were believed to have been captured by Daesh as the spoils of war. The biggest target were Yazidi. They kidnapped the women, raping them, torturing them, and forcing them into sexual slavery. Their intent was to destroy entire communities. A few hundred of the women have made their way back. With the Syrian refugees already here, there are now almost 2 million refugees and displaced Iraqis in this region. In some communities, displaced people outnumber residents. This is just one of the camps for displaced Iraqis. More than 12,000 people live here. When you live in a tent, there's almost nowhere you can go for privacy. Wadha has been trying to put her life back together after being held by Daesh for 3 months. It haunts her.
ناوی هر شش حوالی من نویسی جدا ناوی من نویسی گویش مرا گوزیش خواربم گوبست گوزیوانی دیتری گوزیوان فروشم.
She says she was eventually taken to Mosul and held with other women in a wedding hall. There, some of them were beaten and stripped. Her friend Jaylan slit her wrists. She finally found a chance to escape and persuaded other women to go with her.
نزانين شو لدرك هفن ديواري وان قالك بلندبو. من بردوير دمان مهوالا خو بلند كلنجي أوجي دوجي هاتن أوجي ندقهشتنا ديوار ملنجوان جي بلند كر حرز ما حس يا هات تلقى بلنجي ما تكاتن بس يكن ما ناكات بس دستن ماشكاستن ودستي هوالا مدرس لنجي كيجيشا سريع كيجيشكاست هرموتيشان.
Faiza was 17 years old when Daesh stormed their village. She can still hear the gunmen saying, "Take the women and kill the men." And she replays in her mind Daesh holding a gun to her husband's head. For a rare moment, in the company of other women, she remembers happier times. Her wedding in Sinjar, just a year before Daesh came. Posing for wedding photos with her husband. Faiza and her sister-in-law managed to escape. But like so many women here, she can't escape the memories. Here, Faiza's life is reduced to this tent. But she's a poet.
هزار هسترا ما باراندن
And her voice continues. Her mother-in-law says Faiza gets angry all the time and throws things.
يعني تقرتني بدستو سريوانت برين المبشافت خمدي السريوانت برين يعني شغين جيت مرة قالك زلام بون سيزلام باربون يعني شغين جيت ما بلا بسلاحي كشتني يدي يعني بشافي من سريوان برين
Siwi Abdikhader has just buried her year-and-a-half-old daughter, Jian. She'd had diarrhea for 20 days, and there was no clinic nearby to treat her. She died before they could get her to the hospital. Her son, Maher, who's blind, says his youngest sister has gone home. Her family tells her not to cry, or she'll make Maher cry. Maher can't walk or see, but he can sing. He sings of Sinjar. Along with hundreds of other families, they live in a construction site near Zaho, near the same mountains Kurds used to escape a genocidal campaign 2 decades ago. Life is hard here. No one is sure what comes next. But there's a resiliency that can't be extinguished, and a hunger to find something better. They just can't do it alone.
The issue of ISIS and its attacks against women, families, and people of all types in the region. Now we're talking about this with Sherri Talabany. She's the wife of the Deputy Prime Minister of the Kurdistan Regional Government and president of the Seed Foundation. Sherri, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Watching that video and those stories, it's so emotional for people who perhaps are disconnected from all of that. And it hits home for you.
This took place 45 minutes from the city of Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. And it's hard to believe that this kind of horrific brutality exists today.
Those stories of those women are so compelling, and yet there are many of them, right? I mean, some of them would just shock Americans.
Unfortunately, the story that you heard of the women being captured, subjected to horrendous brutality and violence, their husband being killed, sometimes beheaded in front of them, sometimes their children being killed in front of them. The women were abducted. They were sold all over Iraq, some many times, and they're there to service the soldiers. This was a tactic of ISIS to recruit volunteers, and it certainly was an attempt to break down a society.
The depravity of ISIS and the extent to which they're affecting that entire region, I don't think people fully grasp here.
Well, unfortunately, the lack of ethnic and religious tolerance that we see all over the Middle East allows a system of such violence against the other. We don't have such sectarian violence in Kurdistan. There's a degree of tolerance, both religious and ethnic tolerance, and openness in the society that makes Kurdistan a really different, unique, and special place.
Domestic politics here, you hear Democrats accusing Republicans of a war on women. You talk about a war on women. I mean, ISIS and what is happening over there is a true war on women.
Well, I think that we've seen since the beginning of time women used during war as the spoils of war. As a result of the conflict, women are brutalized, but we haven't seen such a widespread brutality. We've seen between 4,000 and 5,000 women abducted and taken as sex slaves and abused all over Iraq. And even sometimes the ordinary citizen in Iraq has purchased somebody as a slave. It's modern day slavery, Brett.
It's amazing. When you talk about Kurdistan, you talk about a place that is operating, it's not in full autonomy, it's not a country because it's a part of Iraq currently, but it is a democratic place that's operating separate right now of the system inside Iraq.
Well, it's a recognized federal region of Iraq, recognized in Iraq's constitution, that was fought hard for and won. It has a high degree of autonomy, but it is a part of the country of Iraq, and it is the most stable and prosperous part of Iraq. Right now we're going through an economic crisis, and unfortunately we don't have all of the institutions of state that help us endure this crisis. So we've got wars on two borders, we've got almost 2 million refugees and internally displaced Iraqis, and we've got a huge economic crisis.
So, but the Kurds are providing for all of these refugees and these people affected by ISIS in their own way, shelters and food.
Yeah. Well, the government's providing water, shelter, electricity, access to schools and health care. And the people of Kurdistan are so resilient that even despite their own hardships, they've really opened their doors and opened their lives and their communities to these IDPs and refugees.
I mean, a lot of people are talking now about the migrant issue and whether people should be welcomed here, no matter, you know, the religion, if you get into that, but whether that's the right course of action. What do you say to all of that?
Well, without reference to whether I believe they should be resettled here in the United States, I think that with this minority, this ethnic, it's a religious minority, the Yazidi community, and these internally displaced people, I think the best way for them to heal is at home in Kurdistan, where people speak the same language, they're the same religion. We have other Yazidi communities that have thrived in Kurdistan. And so I think that the challenge for us is the capacity. These people are severely traumatized. They were poor before. And if we had the resources that we needed to support their needs, whether it's psychosocial or emotional care, physical shelter, food, and other resources, if we had the resources to support them in Kurdistan, they can begin to rebuild their lives and their communities where they are.
So you set up this foundation, the Seed Foundation. It's a 501c3, seeking donations here in America to help with that effort.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So we have a Seed Foundation operating in Kurdistan and Seed for Change in the U.S. It's a 501c3, and what we're doing is providing that aftercare, that psychosocial support. So counseling to people suffering from trauma to help them cope, social work to help them deal with their everyday problems in the camp, and other classes and training and recreational activities to improve their resiliency so that we can have a healthy and healed community in Kurdistan so they can contribute to our society. And I think it's important for Kurdistan's development. It's important for a generation of children that have now been outside of schools, in some cases for a year or more. And so our organization has a very comprehensive, holistic approach. We're working with these survivors of sexual violence, but we're also working with their whole families and men who are also suffering from trauma, to prevent them from becoming perpetrators and also to help them deal with the trauma of their wives being abused and raped and abducted.
I mean, the stories are horrific and they are great in number. But, you know, the domestic politics here, as you're in a presidential cycle, is all about, you know, we have problems here at home. Why should we be putting ourselves out in these other places? What do you say to somebody who may be thinking that way?
Well, I think we're seeing the result of this mass exodus from Syria. It's a civil war that's gone on for almost 5 years, and we're hosting over 500,000 refugees from Syria and Kurdistan. Now we're seeing, we have about 1.5 million displaced from Iraq. The U.S. has to engage in these countries to prevent these conflicts from overflowing outside the region and across the borders. And we've got this flow of migrants across Europe and now asylum seekers all over the world. So the U.S. has to continue to engage in these areas of strategic importance. The ideology of ISIS, you can see it spreading in the Middle East, and it's a very grave danger to the United States. So I think that caring for these individuals and making sure that that other human beings have a life of dignity despite the political and security conflicts in their countries is really important, and also engaging in these areas to make sure that we have stable partners and that are fostering our ideals of a pluralistic, open, tolerant society in the Middle East.
The Obama administration says they are stepping up support. They're stepping up air cover for the Kurds and trying to facilitate breaking the red tape. But it has been a long time, and we've talked to your husband and others about some frustration. Obviously grateful for what has happened, but definitely more can be done. Is that fair?
Well, I think that the air cover was absolutely essential to our survival over the past year, and I think that more can always be done. Where we have, I think it's been well covered on Fox News about the Peshmerga soldiers that are fighting the front lines. They're the most reliable partners of the U.S., and they ought to be armed and equipped to the same degree as the ISIS soldiers who are now fighting us with U.S. weaponry when the Iraqi army fled last summer from their bases in the northern part. So arming, training, and partnering in so many ways is just critically important to Kurdistan's survival, a key ally of the U.S. in the Middle East, and the kind of country that or place that we want to see foster and grow.
So give us the details. If somebody wants to donate, somebody wants to get involved, what do they do?
Sure. Well, we have our website, which is www.seed, Kurdistan.org, and they can make a donation of any amount and learn more about the work that we're doing and stay engaged. Every dollar matters. Every effort can go directly to the women and the families that we're supporting. We have low overhead, no big administrative structures. We're working on the ground, a partnership between international people like me and locals who know exactly what the needs are of this population.
And the stories, they unfortunately continue, but you're hoping that eventually you can help these communities recover.
Well, new women are coming back, being rescued and escaping every day from the hands of ISIS. Some are coming with their children, some are coming alone, and we want to be there and expand our services so no woman that comes back from this horrific criminal acts has to face this situation alone.
Well, Sherri, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.